and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how I turned this Tazza in the theme of water. Now this in itself is a fairly challenging project, especially given I've not tried many of the techniques I used for this project. However, it was really awesome to turn and I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get going. So here's a closer look at the Tazza. It's got a beach centre, which is this middle part here, and it's got this rippling effect, which you'll see in my reference image is where I got inspired from. And then if I hold it here, you can see it's got a sort of raindrop pattern and then this base, which is sort of symbolising water. Now, I really like the overall form of this, and it's finished with wood turners blend. Personally, I think I got a really nice finish, although I am going to be slightly biased. But yeah, I'm really happy with it, and you can see the stunning shine you get there. And also, I love the overall form of it, and I just really like the colours and the patterns. I started out by turning the top of the Tazza, and to do this I basically turned a bowl. It was pretty simple to do. I just used a 180mm bowl blank, and the bowl blank I chose to use was beech. I got the beech from Surrey Timbers and it turned absolutely beautifully. In my opinion, beech is one of the nicest woods to turn. You get absolutely beautiful shavings, as you can see, and it turns like butter. It's a real pleasure to turn beech, and I definitely want to make more projects using it, as I just found it such a rewarding and enjoyable process to do. I think all in all, to turn the inside and outside of the top section of the Tazza took me about 1 hour and 20 minutes, which, considering I've only been turning for about a year, I didn't think that was too bad, especially given I also got the nicest finish I've ever had off a bowl, as I didn't really have to sand very much. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know I particularly like using a reference image. Now this consists of a variety of images that help me visualise what I want to create. So for my Tazza, I was very interested in creating a rippling effect in the top of it, and for that I've looked at colours and some rippling, which I'll show you later. Firstly, these are the overall colour palettes that I was aiming for. So you've got the greeny blue tinge of the water, and then you've got this lovely darker blue hue here, and I think you can see all of that in a Tazza, which I'll show you now. I then started to turn the rippling effect in the bowl, and to do this I just took a nice finishing pass over the inside of the bowl and then moved the tool to the centre, and essentially I just created some divots into the bowl's surface. I was rather nervous about doing this, as there wasn't much going back after doing that, as they're fairly deep. They're probably about 3 or 4 mil into the bowl, but I think they turned out really great, and I'm really happy that I decided to put them in there. So here's the bowl part of this project so far. I'm really happy with this. I think it looks really good. I've got a nice ripple pattern in the centre, and then essentially we're going to colour it now. So once we've coloured it, we're then going to turn the teardrop or water drop part, and for that I've got this bit of beech, got a nice ripple to it as well, and then I'm going to make the base out of this piece here. So for now we're going to move on to colouring this. So there's 1,000 different ways to colour a bowl. I'm going to do this with Hampshire Sheen and maybe a bit of Libron as well. Then for this I'll be using stains and dyes, and the same with the base as well. All of them have really nice grain pattern to them, which is why I picked these specific pieces of wood for this project. Beech is really easy to turn, you get absolutely lovely shavings from it, and it's just a lovely wood to work with. And as you can see, I've just got absolutely loads and loads and loads of all these shavings here. I've got a whole bucket full of them, so I've got quite a lot of shavings. But for now, as you can see, we've got a nice finish on the inside of this. There's a little bit of a tool mark I just want to remove there. And apart from that, I'm really happy with the finish. Not my best ever finish, but probably the best finish in terms of the size of the bowl. This is the biggest bowl I've turned yet. And I know for some people this is minuscule. It still is fairly small. I think it's about 180mm across. I'll measure it up for you now though. So I was right, it's about 18mm across. There we go. 18mm, so 180mm or 18 centimetres. So it's a fairly decent sized little bowl. Then it's going to sit on top of this, which sits on this nice chunky base. Now the base needs to be very thick because it needs to be able to support the weight of the top of that, and this is a very thin finial part or middle part to it. It's got this lovely chatoyance to it. I don't know whether you can make that out. So if I zoom in a bit here, you can see you've got the background reference image here still, but you can clearly see you've got that blue effect. And if you look at the centre, you might be able to make out that greenish effect. And to do that, I just basically did different amounts of the blue dye. Now I was using Libron concentrated wood dye here, and I'll show you that now. But that's what I used to basically get this really nice blue effect, which I really think I'm quite happy with. And you can see where the light catches, you get different effects of the blue tinge, and I think that's quite cool. I then started the colouring process of the bowl, and this is my absolute favourite part of the project. It's so great when you put the colour on and you see all of the depth and the different aspects of the bowl that really start to come to life. Now for this I used the Lebron Blue concentrated wood dye and rubbed one whole coat over the surface of the bowl. Now here's the blue dye I used. So what I do is I get the blue Lebron concentrated water-based wood dye, and then I essentially mix that with, I would say I use about 4 or 5 drops of the blue Lebron concentrated wood dye with about, I don't know, let's go maybe 6 or 7 teaspoons worth of water, and I just mix it up into a really nice strong concentration. And I like to leave them in these little spice jars as they're great for using a dye with. They're easy to apply it with. But I particularly like using these Lebron concentrated wood dyes. I also like the Hampshire Sheen ones. After letting the dye dry for a bit, I then applied 1 coat of Chestnut Products cellulose sanding sealer. And this then provides a base on which I can apply the wax to. Now the wax I'm using is obviously Woodturner's Blend. I chose to use a wax finish for this as I think it really brought out the grain and really highlighted all of the different colours and depths in the bowl. So in a minute you'll see the bowl that I started turning, or the base should I say, and that was going to create this part here. However, unfortunately it didn't work because I found this crack running through the centre, which wasn't originally that visible on the face of the bowl blank. So unfortunately this isn't going to work. I'm going to hold on to it because I'm going to fill this with some CA glue and some bronze infill powder or something like that. But it didn't work for creating a base with, so that's why you'll see I had to start again. I shaped the base into a shape that I thought was appealing to the eye and had quite a nice form to it. I then did the same thing that I did with the top of the bowl, except this time I created a rippling effect slightly differently. I advanced the tool a lot further than I had previously, probably about 10, maybe even 15 mil, and this just created a lovely depth. I then used a drill chuck in my tailstock and advanced that 20mm into the base and used a 20mm spade bit. Ideally use a forcing bit, but I didn't have one. And then to do this, it essentially allowed me to create a tenon and a mortise, which created a really secure fitting for the Tazza. I then applied 1 coat of Lebron concentrated wood dye, some cellulose sanding sealer and Woodturner's Blend. So if you're interested, here's what I used to create the top of this part from. It's a piece of beech, it's about 180mm across when it's finished, and it's just a lovely bit of beech from Surrey Timbers. Now I use Surrey Timbers for all of my blanks. I think they're really good quality and they're good prices. I milled this one up myself, hence why you got these dodgy cuts here, but overall I really like using beech, and as you can see I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So if we look at our other, I guess, reference image, you can see some more of what I was trying to convey. Water drop, water drop. So that was the aim there. I was trying to create an interesting water drop effect coming from the rippling in the top, and it's almost supposed to sort of represent a water drop cascading down into the base. And here's some more reference images I used. You've got this one, which is where you've got like a water drop splashing and creating that rippling effect. You've got the light shining through, which I didn't really end up using, but I thought it was cool nonetheless. And then this is sort of the main image I focused on, where you've got quite a nice dimple in the middle and it just slowly ripples out. And if you look in that, I think I did a fairly good job at conveying that. So that's why I like to use reference images the most, as I just feel they really help basically create your project and they allow you easily to visualise what you want to create. Then it was on to some spindle work. I absolutely love doing spindle work as it's pretty quick and it's really enjoyable. I used my spindle roughing gouge to rough down the blank. This took basically 30 seconds, it took no time at all. And the rough and gouge I have is quite big, I'd say it's maybe an inch or so, and it just roughs this material out so quickly. And I was using the beech that I had used for the other parts, so I knew it was going to turn really well. I then used a skew chisel and a spindle gouge in order to create the shape of the raindrop or water drop. I then applied some blue concentrated wood dye, some Chestnut Products cellulose sanding sealer, and then Woodturner's Blend over the top. Now I did have a little issue fitting the bottom part of this. I turned it a tiny bit too small, which was very annoying, and I didn't want to return it because I was really happy with the shape. So what I did was I used a little bit of this Gorilla Glue and its expanding glue, and this just filled it perfectly. This is brilliant, brilliant stuff. I don't use it a lot, but when I need it, it's an absolute lifesaver. So I really recommend getting some of this stuff if you ever have a problem with a project not working. It's a bit of a lifesaver, and it's got me out of a few sticky situations before. This is probably my favourite piece I've ever created, and I think you can all agree I've definitely challenged myself with this. It's not like anything else I've ever created, and it's the biggest thing I've ever created as well. This is the biggest bowl I've ever turned, being 180mm. It's still tiny for most people, but my lathe's only got a max capacity of 240, but that doesn't really account for having a tool rest. So this is a fairly big bowl, and it's probably about the comfortable sort of size bowl to turn on my lathe. And if you're interested, a Tazza is a cup in Italian. Yeah, I don't know why I chose to do a Tazza. I was doing some research into what I wanted to do in terms of design, and I found a Tazza, and I thought, bingo, this is exactly what I want to create. Water-themed Tazza, and I'm really over the moon with this. I think it's turned out great. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I had an absolute blast making this Tazza. It was a bit of a challenge, especially with some of the tool presentation angles and things like that I was trying. However, I did particularly enjoy making this. Stay tuned for next week's video, which will most likely be turning something. I haven't quite decided what it's going to be yet though. Thanks for watching.